Hey everyone, so live from Real Estate Central. I am now in the office here. I haven't put a shirt on as of yet. Doing some computer work here, but there was a topic that came up here that I wanted to touch base on quickly because it has come up and it comes up a lot in the city of Windsor real estate. So let's go to that topic. The topic is, as a first-time home buyer, when you have a limited amount of money to spend, let's say you have $350,000 or less to spend for a house, and you're looking for an individual house. Many of the houses in that price point in the city of Windsor have tenants in them. They just do. They were bought by out-of-towners back when money was free. Had tons of that. And all these do-gooders thought, hey, the bank's money's free. I'll go ahead and I'll buy a house with my credit score, and I'll go and put tenants in it, and I'll make all kinds of money, and I'll build equity, and I'll do all this wonderful stuff, and I'll be able to go on cruises and go to the Bahamas and go to all this other stuff. So they were trying to game the system. There's no gaming the system. It's a lot of hard work. It's the only way you go cruising is to work hard. It's the only way you go on vacations is to work hard. Now, you can use your credit card and go into debt. It's not necessarily the right vacation because then you're worrying about how much money you're going to spend. So, what I want to point out to you is that with properties that have tenants in them, they never close. So these do-gooders bought the house with their credit score. They never come down to Windsor to see the house. They never change the batteries in the fire alarms like I tell them to so that they can go and access their property and stuff. They never do any of that. They just said, hey, the bank's money's free. I can make all kinds of money. Why would I want to do that? And it never works well. Have a lot of them right now, all across the city, which are coming for sale, which is good because it's giving us some inventory to be able to buy. But here's the challenge. If there's a house with a tenant in it, the first thing you have to do is you have to give them 90 days or 60 days notice to move. So I'll give you a for instance. There was just a house that the sold date was the 29th of February. The closing date is the first day of May because notice has to be served to the tenant. Right? Must give them 60 days notice to move. So they did that. And this house on Elmer does not close until the 1st of May. Now, what happens? The person buying the house is a first-time home buyer. And they need vacant possession to be able to close the house and move in. Now, to them, they think, oh, this is good. I'll just boot them out. The tenants will have to leave. And I'll move in on May 1st. You would expect that that's the way that the system works. But it doesn't work that way. At all. So what happens is the tenant who is paying... There's those blood clots. Sorry. So the tenant who's paying $1,800 a month in rent, whatever. We assume they're paying rent. Doesn't mean that they are paying rent. Chances are the reason the house is for sale is because the tenant isn't even paying the rent. They've got one of those coming in Ford City right now. So the tenant doesn't move. You get to May 1st, on April 30th, you do your final walkthrough. You go over to try to do your final walkthrough, and the tenant says, oh, hell no, you can't come in. It's their right. They don't have to let you in. Even if you've served notice that, hey, we want to come in on the 30th. Well, hey, sorry. I'm not letting you in. Thanks for bearing with me on these things. Life is a little challenging right now. So what happens is the house doesn't close. Then even though you bought a house, you didn't buy a house because you can't close the transaction because the tenant's not moving. And the tenant will not move until the sheriff shows up, the guy with the gun. Literally, the guy with the gun has to show up and say, look, you're out. Your run here has come to an end. We're booting you out on this official day. And that might be months after May 1st. So what happens is you go in and you happy-go-lucky, oh, I'm buying a house. You're not buying a house. You're not closing the transaction if there's a tenant in it, because the tenant doesn't have to move. And an only way for you to close the house is to have vacant possession. Now, if you ever have a realtor who tells you, oh, that's okay, just go ahead and close on the transaction with the tenant in there, you're breaking the law. Because the covenant of your mortgage loan is that you have vacant possession. And you're creating a massive train wreck if you close that house. The reason you're creating a massive train wreck is you're creating mortgage fraud. Do you want mortgage fraud? If you create mortgage fraud, then nobody will ever give you a mortgage again, or for a very, very long time, you won't be able to get a mortgage. You don't want to create mortgage fraud. It's not someplace you want to go. The second thing is that you're then responsible for a house that the utilities aren't being paid on, that no rent's coming in, and you sit there and say, oh, this is nice because these people are going to happily leave if I take possession of it. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to offer them a $5 Timmy's card, and they're going to happily just package everything up right away and leave, and then I'll be able to move in. Never do that. If you ever have a realtor put pressure on you to close a transaction, even if you cannot get vacant possession, do not create mortgage fraud. Fire that realtor immediately. And let their broker of record know that they're asking you to create mortgage fraud. Let your mortgage advisor know, wait a second, here's what the problem is. Here's what the realtor's telling me to do. I don't want to create mortgage fraud. Help. And the mortgage company will not send over the paperwork to close the transaction. Because you need vacant possession so that you can move in. So be exceptionally cautious as a first-time home buyer. Do not ever close a transaction with a tenant in it, because you're creating a train wreck. So what happens, and I did this last year, I had a young gentleman who watches these videos who, oh, but Brian, they'll move. They never moved. We didn't close. And then he delayed. He said, oh, I'll give him another 2 weeks. This will be good. I'll give him another 2 weeks. Thinking rationally that people are rational. No. So as it turns out, what happened was we walked away from that transaction and we got him a far better house in a far better location without a tenant in it so that he could buy it and move in. So right now in the city of Windsor, there is a ton of for sale properties that have tenants in them. That's what happened 2, 3, 4 years ago when money was free. All these people from Toronto came down and bought all kinds of houses. And it creates a train wreck. So when you're a first-time home buyer and you're looking for your first house, the thing that becomes important from a realtor's perspective is that we need to coach you on that. And we need to show you, hey, I don't want you buying any house that has a tenant in it. We need vacant possession. And I'm adamant about it. I don't go to work and show you houses at $200,000 or $250,000 that have tenants in them because they will never close. I won't get paid. You won't get a house. Why do we even want to do that work? It will never happen. You have to wait for vacant possession. You have to wait for the house to be vacant or for an owner to own the house. What's the occupancy? Owner. Oh, I can go buy that house. What's the occupancy? Vacant. Oh, I can go buy that house. What's the occupancy? Tenant. Stay away because it will never close. The chances of getting a tenanted property to close on time is very, very slim. Sometimes they do work out. I'll just be truthful. Sometimes they do. But it's never easy. And as a first-time home buyer, why do you want to make that complication? Why do you want that stress? No, it doesn't have to be that way. Find an owner-owned house or a vacant house to be able to buy as a first-time home buyer. A little bit of advice for first-time home buyers. And I don't really typically work with first-time home buyers. I do have a few. Do help people. And I do have one right now that's going to need to learn this lesson. It's part of the other reason for putting this video together again today. He's asking me about tenanted houses. So there you go. It's a good way for all of us to learn. Go out, have fun today. I'm going to get to work, get my mind off of all this other medical crap going on, and go out and help people because that's what my calling is. Have a great day. Bye-bye.